The new Samsung Galaxy J4 Plus and J6 Plus are extremely similar, and in fact, they feel like they're just two variants of the same device. Priced at Rs 10,990 and Rs 15,990 respectively, they will go up against some of the most in-demand models in India right now. We've got both of them in for review and we are curious to see how Samsung plans to fight back. The two phones are practically identical in terms of design. The only external differences are that the Galaxy J6 Plus has two cameras on its back and a wider sunk power button with an integrated fingerprint sensor on its right. Other than these things, it's impossible to tell them apart. Both have exactly the same dimensions and feel the same in terms of weight. Both the Galaxy J4 Plus and the Galaxy J6 Plus feature 18.5:9 screens, which Samsung calls infinity displays, even though the sides of these phones aren't curved and there are still substantial borders above and below the screens. The glass on the front and the rear is slightly rounded and both are quite slippery. On the left of each phone, you'll find individual volume buttons and two trays, one for a single nano SIM and the larger one for a second nano SIM, as well as a micro SD card. VoLTE is supported on both phones, though 4G can only be active through one SIM at one time. The Galaxy J4 Plus doesn't have a fingerprint sensor at all, and its stubby little power button is placed a little too high for our comfort. The sensor on the Galaxy J6 Plus takes quite a bit of getting used to because it's integrated into the power button on the side and is slightly recessed. Both phones are relatively large even by today's standards. You'll be happy if you like big screens, but we found both a bit too heavy and unwieldy for comfortable everyday use. The screens on both phones measure 6 inches diagonally with resolutions of 720 by 1480. They're both bright and vivid despite not using OLED panels, like Samsung's more expensive models. But they do suffer slightly in terms of sharpness. Considering how competitive the Indian smartphone market is, we were quite shocked when Samsung announced that the Galaxy J4 Plus and the Galaxy J6 Plus use Qualcomm Snapdragon 425 processors. This SoC launched in late 2016 and we've seen it in several extremely low-end phones such as the Xiaomi Redmi 4A, the Redmi 5A, XR-D, Infinix Hot 6 Pro, Moto E5 and Nokia 2.1. The Galaxy J4 Plus has 2GB of RAM and 32GB of storage, and the Galaxy J6 Plus has 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. Both phones have the same 3300 mAh battery, but there's no quick charging even though the processor used supports Qualcomm Quick Charge 2.0. Both models run Android 8.1 with Samsung Experience 9.5 and both received the September 2018 Android security patch at different points during a review period. There are a lot of customizations including Samsung's promotional apps and widgets. My Galaxy in particular was extremely aggressive with spam, sending us multiple notifications every day for entertainment and exclusive offers. Samsung J series is also known for Indianized features such as S-Bike mode to improve on-road safety, S-Power planning for battery management, and the ability to install apps to a microSD card. New with the Galaxy J4 Plus and Galaxy J6 Plus is an Emotify feature integrated into Samsung's keyboard. It is somewhat like Apple's Animojis but without the facial recognition and modeling. You create an avatar by selecting various attributes such as hairstyles and clothes, and then a gallery of animated stickers is generated. Most of these are very India specific with English slang and pop culture references. While Samsung's official spec sheet explicitly states that neither of the phones support facial recognition, we saw the option to set it up in both their settings apps. There's a warning that it isn't as secured as a pattern or a pin, and that someone or something that looks like your image could be able to unlock these phones. The registration process took unusually long on both and there was some lag when trying to actually use recognition. But it did work almost every time. We had hoped that Samsung would somehow manage to optimize its software to run smoothly on these two phones, but that proved to not be true. Everything was laggy and frustrating, more so on the Galaxy J4 Plus, most likely due to it having only 2GB of RAM. And simple things like rotating the display from portrait to landscape often resulted in long pauses. On both phones, there was severe delay when launching the camera app either from the home screen or from the lock screen, which made it difficult to take shots spontaneously. On the bright side, the phone's screen was quite good for watching videos on. They're bright enough to use under sunlight and colors do pop nicely. Placed side by side, the Galaxy J6 Plus seemed to be able to display richer, more saturated colors and had a more natural white tone, while the Galaxy J4 Plus was slightly duller and yellower. The built-in speakers on both phones are extremely harsh and screechy, and we were forced to use headphones to get through watching a video. The Galaxy J Fold Plus has a single 13-megapixel camera on the rear, while the Galaxy J6 Plus has an additional 5-megapixel depth sensor and a live focus mode in its camera app. In all other respects, including app UI, both phones are identical. Our experiences using both phones was also pretty much the same, except that the Galaxy J Fold Plus was slower and much less responsive. Shutter lag was a problem with both phones, but it was noticeably worse with a lower price model. When shooting with both phones, we found that the light metering was a struggle. Especially at night, the phones would rapidly switch between white balance profiles as they tried to figure out what would work best. This of course added extra lag to the process. Photo quality was just about okay, and once again we were disappointed considering the prices of these two phones. Photos were blotchy and grainy when seen at full size, with bright areas completely blown out and fine details completely muddled. Both phones also really only did well with close-ups, and objects in the background were sometimes unrecognizable. The depth mode on the Galaxy J6 Plus sometimes delivered very crisp results. Videos can be recorded at up to 1920 by 1080 resolution, and they came up looking pretty shaky. There's no option for stabilization. With moving objects in the frame, we saw constant focus hunting, which made the recorded video very difficult to watch. The Galaxy J6 Plus has an 8-megapixel front camera, while the Galaxy J Fold Plus steps down to 5 megapixels. Both have front LED illuminators which adjusted brightness. Selfies also came out looking just about acceptable. The Galaxy J Fold Plus lasted 12 hours 45 minutes in our HD video loop test, but the Galaxy J6 Plus only went on for 11 hours 38 minutes. The difference is surprising. With light use, both phones should be able to get you through a full day from morning to night. We found that the charging was extremely slow and it took half an hour to get up to 10% on the Galaxy J Fold Plus. After a full hour, we were at 28%, and it took us over 3 hours to fill up the battery completely. Samsung is clearly relying a lot on its brand value and software features to sell these phones. They are simply not competitive at all and would be poor choices for anyone. The Galaxy J Fold Plus is priced at 10,990 rupees, which places it right against the Xiaomi Redmi 6 Pro, the Asus Zenfone Max Pro M1 and the Realme One. The only reason we can think for someone to choose the Galaxy J Fold Plus rather than any of its competitors would be that they only have the most basic needs and really value the Samsung brand above all else. The Galaxy J6 Plus will cost an unbelievable 15,990 rupees, which means it takes on the 6GB RAM 64GB storage version of the Realme 2 Pro, Moto One Power and the Nokia 6.1 Plus. There's no shortage of better alternatives and Samsung has to know this. The price of the Galaxy J6 Plus and the experience that you get simply mean that we can safely rule it out as an option when recommending phones to anyone.